Abarera Legos Ram Ori Banish C10 Demonio Dinaja 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 Abarera Legos Ram Abarera Legos Ram Ori Banish C10 Demonio Dinaja 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 Abarera Legos Ram Ori Banish C10 Demonio
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Satan and Coffee, Sunday Black Mass. Yes, myself. Very good. So, as we always begin, hail Satan, hail Lilith, hail Lucifer, hail Pyman, hail Baphomet, hail thyself. Reject the Trinity, reject the baptism of John, reject the baptism of the Spirit. Welcome, everyone. Good to see everyone. Wow, Ayla, coming out of nowhere. How's it going? Good to see you. So welcome, everybody. So today is going to be an interesting hey, got to find the right spot, right? So got to keep that moving going until you're in position where you want to be, right? That makes perfect sense. So today we're going to be talking about kind of like an interesting subject. So I know normally we read from the Satanic Bible, and we may still have time for that after we're done talking about this, but it's not going to be the focus for today. What the focus for today is going to be is we're going to be discussing and talking about ego death. Now, before we kind of jump into what it is that I wrote, because I had to write all this down, so I'm watching all over the place. Let's talk about first and foremost what ego death is, right? So got two Wikipedia pages pulled up here so we can break this down. So ego death is a complete loss of subjective self-identity. So the term is used in various intertwined contexts with related meanings. The 19th century philosopher and psychologist William James uses the synonymous term self surrender, and Jungian psychology uses the synonymous term psychic death, referring to a fundamental transformation of the psyche. In death and rebirth mythology, ego death is a phase of self surrender and transition, as described later by Joseph Campbell in his research on the mythology of the hero's journey. It is a recurrent theme in world mythology and also used as a metaphor in some strands of contemporary Western thinking. Okay, so that is kind of like focal point on. Now, with that, we just mentioned Jungian psychology. So, talk about psychic death. So, let's talk about self in Jungian psychology. The self in Jungian psychology is a dynamic concept which has undergone numerous modifications since it was first conceptualized as one of archetypes. Historically, the self, according to Carl Jung, signifies the unification of consciousness and unconsciousness in a person and representing the psyche as a whole. It is realized as the product of individuation, which, in his view, is the process of integrating, wow, damn, words, various aspects of one's personality. For Jung, the self is an encompassing whole which acts as a container. Could be symbolized as a circle, a square, or even Allah. All are welcome. If there's one thing that is extremely important about this channel, it is that everyone, regardless of path, regardless of direction, spiritually or otherwise, are welcome. So, those are kind of like the two logical points. Now, dive into the part that I wrote. Said I had to write this down because a lot to cover. So, wrote, as for today we stand on the precipice of transformation, gazing into the abyss of our own being. The left-hand path is not for the faint of heart. It demands that we confront the most terrifying aspects of ourselves. In our journey, we may encounter what is known as the ego death, a profound experience where the self, as we know it, dissolves into the void. It is a death not of the body, but of the identity we cling so tightly. In this moment of dissolution, when all that we think we are falls away, we have a choice. We can succumb to fear, retreat into the familiar, or we can embrace the death of the ego as a rite of passage, a crucible of transformation. It is through the guidance of Baphomet and the teachings through LaVeyan Satanism and theistic Satanism. I know LaVeyan Satanism isn't theistic Satanism. I'm adding those two together. That we can navigate this dark night of the soul, emerging stronger, wiser, and more fully aligned with our true will. I do believe that when we encounter this moment of understanding that what we believe to be our identity begins to kind of fall away into pieces, I personally believe that the best course of action from that point is to embrace that process and allow that process to happen, to come out on the other side. There is a reason why we begin to disconnect from what we believe to be our true identity. We begin to disconnect from that because it is not the whole of who we are. So, talk about the nature. Ego death is a concept that has been explored in various spiritual traditions, but it holds a unique place in theistic Satanism and the left-hand path. It is not simply a loss of self. It is a deliberate shedding of false identities, a stripping away of all that is not truly us. The ego is the mask we wear, the accumulation of societal conditioning, fears, and desires that obscure our authentic self. When the ego dies, it feels like a descent into chaos, into nothingness. This is the moment of the greatest fear, where the ego clings to life, to existence. But this death is not the end. It is a rebirth. As the caterpillar must dissolve to become a butterfly, so too must we undergo this death to be reborn as our true divine selves. And I believe if we do look at this as a growth point, if we experience this ego death, and we allow ourselves the ability to kind of take a step back at it and understand that this is a growth point, it's terrifying to lose that connection with yourself, that understanding of who you are as a person, what you thought you were as a person. But as with all things in nature and all things in magic, the old must be stripped away to allow for the new to come and shine through. It's a necessary process. Now let's talk about Baphomet's position and how Baphomet can assist in the navigation of the ego death. Again, these are all my opinions. These are my ideas of things that I've endured and things that I've gone through and how I've come out on the other side. So I thought that sharing this would be pertinent, especially for the black man. The Baphomet, the catalyst of transformation. Baphomet, the androgynous figure that embodies both light and darkness, order and chaos, is the perfect symbol for this journey. Baphomet represents the union of opposites, the reconciliation of the dualities within us. As we stand before Baphomet, we are reminded that true power lies not in denying one aspect of ourselves, but in embracing the totality of our being. Not only through Baphomet, but through the left-hand path as well, understanding that we both have a light and dark side, and that to fully be at peace and balance with ourselves, we have to accept the totality of who we are. We cannot veer away and try to ignore one side because it makes us uncomfortable. That is the side that we need to focus on more and bring it further into the fold, because of the fact that there is an aspect of you that makes you uncomfortable. There are thoughts and desires and things in your mind that maybe to you, because of societal conditioning, you believe that you shouldn't think the way that you do or feel the way that you do. By bringing it further into the fold, it's not to say that you are going to act out on certain things, but merely to say that you wish to understand that part of yourself in a deeper, more profound way. In theistic Satanism, Baphomet is not just a symbol, but a living force. A deity who guides us through the darkness of the ego death. Baphomet teaches us to confront our fears, to embrace the chaos within, and to emerge as a full realized being. When we invoke Baphomet during our rituals, we are calling upon the power to destroy the old self and to give birth to the new. Now, this isn't particularly or specifically, Baphomet is not specifically an aspect of theistic Satanism. But I do believe that there, especially with the ego death, there are many parallels between theistic Satanism and being a Dedekind of Baphomet, and the way that this is managed, handled, which is why I decided to include both theistic Satanism and Baphomet in. But I just don't want there to be any confusion, because again, like as this is written, it says in theistic Satanism, Baphomet is not just, and Baphomet is not uniquely or even specifically an entity that is worshipped or worked with in theistic Satanism, but definitely on the left-hand path. Now, what does the role of the left-hand path hold? The left-hand path is often misunderstood as a path of darkness, but in truth it is a path of light, a light that shines in the darkest corners of our soul. It is a path that demands self-mastery, self-deification, and the courage to face the unknown. The left-hand path teaches us that we are our own gods, that we hold the power to shape our reality and our destiny. This is not to say that we are actual gods, but much of what we want to achieve through the left-hand path, what we understand is much of what we want to achieve in life, we don't need a ritual for it. We don't need a spell. We don't need a demon. We don't need a god to achieve most of the things that we want to achieve in our lives. Most of the things that we want to achieve in our lives, we can do ourselves, as long as we have the constitution and willpower to do so. And much of what we want to achieve requires discipline. And I know many people do not like that word because they think that it's something negative, and that those that, have a bad day and can't get up in the morning and don't have the discipline to wake up in the morning and do the things that they want to do, and they feel bad about it. It's not about here and now. I'm just gonna put it out there. If you want to wake up early in the morning and you want to start working out and you want to start being healthier and you want to start being a better version of yourself, and you don't, and you wake up late, and that makes you feel guilty, good. You should feel guilty because you let yourself down. This idea of everyone needing to feel happy and about all of the things that they're unable to do for themselves. No, you shouldn't feel happy about letting yourself down. You shouldn't be okay with letting yourself down. Because then what's the push? What's to push you to go forward? What's to force you to go forward? If the entire world tells you, no, it's perfectly fine, you're just eating all the McDonald's in the world, you're sitting on your ass not doing anything, it's perfectly fine as long as you're happy. And you know that you're not happy because there's that part of you that says, yes, I want to do this thing. I want to get up, go to the gym, get a workout in, eat healthy, strong, healthy foods, and become stronger and healthier myself. This picture of people being happy and unhealthy is a lie. If you feel guilty for breaking a promise to yourself, then good, you should. You should feel guilty for breaking a promise to yourself. And this is kind of part and parcel with the ego death. This concept of losing touch with what you believe to be your identity. And when you lose touch with that, it's terrifying. But the important part is that you push yourself forward, you push yourself through it. Ego death is a necessary trial in this path. It is the fire that purifies us, the crucible that refines us, It is through this death that we are reborn as gods in our own right. Free from the shackles of the false self, the left-hand path does not offer comfort or easy answers. It offers the truth, raw and unfiltered. It offers the power to rise above our limitations and to claim our place as masters of our own fate. So in the left-hand path, the ego death is almost like a rite of passage. It's almost like a self-initiation. It's when you truly understand that there is more to you than what you've believed there to be all this time. All the times in your life that you told yourself that you couldn't. All the times in your life that you told yourself that you were too tired. All the times in your life that you told yourself that you were too weak. All the times that you listened to everyone else around you that tell you that every idea that you've ever had was a stupid idea and that you shouldn't pursue any of them. This death brings you to the other side to understand you are not weak, you are powerful. You are not lazy. You are not a bad person. And that your ideas and your thoughts and the things that you wish to achieve in your life are not impossible. They're right at your fingertips. You just have to reach for them. So navigating the ego. How do we navigate through this? Right? What are some things that we can do, like if this begins to happen? Because I'm sure that most people aren't intentionally trying to have an ego death, right? And to be completely honest, I don't think that you can try to force yourself to have one, right? I think it either happens or it doesn't, right? And if it does happen, I'm hoping that this particular video, this particular walkthrough here, will help those experiencing this that are on the left-hand path or want to be on the left-hand path and that are experiencing this to kind of navigate through it and get to the other side in the best way possible. As you embark on this journey, know that you're not alone. Baphomet offers us the tools and the guidance to navigate the ego death through ritual, meditation, and communion with the dark gods. And not just with Baphomet, but also pantheon of dark gods. We can face the disillusion of the ego with courage and grace. So first, ritual. Perform a ritual of self-dedication. Baphomet, offering up the ego as a sacrifice. In the presence of the divine, allow the false self to be consumed in the flames, leaving only the pure essence of your true being. Offer your shell as a sacrifice. Allow it to be burned away. Meditation. Engage in deep meditation, focusing on the image of Baphomet. Visualize the dissolution of the ego, the breaking down of all that is not truly you. Feel the fear, the chaos, and then feel the calm that follows, the peace of true self-realization. Communion. Speak to Baphomet, Satan, to the dark forces that guide you. Ask for their strength, their wisdom, and their guidance. Know that they are with you, not as external saviors, but as reflections of the divine power within you. The journey through the ego death is one of the most challenging yet rewarding experiences on the left-hand path. It is a journey that strips away all illusion and reveals the divine truth within. In the death of the ego, we find that the birth of the God within us, as you leave this sanctuary, and go forward to find new peace, know that that which dies and falls away from you is no longer needed. And I believe that on the path, on this path, the left-hand path, when there's inevitably going to come a point of realization, there's inevitably going to come this point of like this light bulb turning on, and then this immediate disconnect from what it is, what your self is. That immediate disconnect is the thing that most people are afraid of, and that's one of the things that make people kind of bounce away. And they're like, no, I don't want anything to do with this, right? It makes me question who I am. It makes me question what I am. And that's kind of the point. So the only comparison that you should ever be making is comparing yourself today from who you were yesterday, and attempting to be a better version of who you are each and every day. And there comes that time, there comes that point where you realize that who you believe you are as a person, what your identity is, what the self is, what the ego is, what your current stature of your thought of who you are, isn't who you want to be. And unfortunately, yes, it's an empowering process, but the initial aspect of it is terrifying. To doubt your identity of who you are as a person is terrifying. But most of the time, the identity of who we think we are is an identity that society forced upon us. Your parents, the church, your school, your friends, other members of your family, clergymen, media, all of these things. We created this picture in our mind of who or what we're supposed to be, with elements and pieces of what we truly want to be or need to be for ourselves. And so the ego death represents understanding the parts of yourself that no longer serve you, and allow you the opportunity and the ability to move forward and past that. So, for me, what I would define as my ego death, my separation from my previous identity, I think it's happened a couple times, not just once, in different aspects of who I am. So there was a point in my life where, for those of you that don't know, like, I like to consider myself a goth, right? What part was forced on you? It's not a fast process. It's you need to find things that you connect with and allow those things to overtake. For me, for example, one of the things that kind of happened to me, like starting like early on in my life, I think like in my 20s, is so like I've always been into goth culture. I've always been into fashion and, you know, the the dark aesthetic. And because of society, because of work, it kind of forced me into a position where I felt like I needed to look a certain way. I needed to act a certain way. I needed to be a certain way. So I changed who I was against my better judgment. I took all my piercings out. Stopped painting my nails. I stopped wearing eyeliner. I stopped wearing black clothes. I started essentially dressing like a fucking lumberjack. And I hated myself. I absolutely hated myself. I hated looking at myself. I didn't know who it was that I was looking at. And this went on for a few years. That's good. That's good, Kayla. I'm happy to hear it. Very happy to hear it. Yeah, so that's definitely an aspect of it. So that was kind of like the first thing. And it got to a point where I felt like I had to completely disconnect from that person, that image that I was creating. And it was terrifying. It was terrifying to break away from this thing that I created for like 5 years that made me feel safe around people that might not understand, you know, my aesthetic choices or even my mindset. Because it's something that, like, clothing isn't just clothing. When you begin to try to change how it is that you look, you try to also kind of change how you think, right? To kind of better fit, you know, the masses that are around you. And so breaking away from that was very difficult. Now, once I kind of really kind of started embracing who and what it is that I want to be, aesthetically speaking, and allowing my thoughts to, you know, continue the way that they naturally supposed to, there is a big fucking weight lifted off of me. Now that's not necessarily, you know, it's disillusionment with the created identity used to make others feel better. And in doing so, by making others feel better, it made me feel safe. But it was a wrong thing to do. And so I definitely say that would be like the first one. And then the one after that was directly after that was realizing that I was in a situation that I shouldn't be in, that I can't be in. It wasn't healthy for me. And in that situation, there is a level of you become dependent on the toxicity of certain situations with certain people. You begin to have kind of like a dependency on that. And you begin to believe that you can't survive without it. And killing that idea is absolutely terrifying. Because it's all you know. For however many years, you know, you did or didn't do something or whatever. And you have to learn how to rebuild yourself. The ego death isn't a fast process. Sometimes, like Kayla is saying, it happens in pieces. You begin to learn to change and adjust certain aspects of yourself as time goes on. Some things just immediately fall away and you just jump back into it, like going from looking like a fucking lumberjack to who I look like today. And it is crazy. It's a crazy, you know, situation. You know, like it's different for everyone, the aspects of yourself that you need to peel away. Now, when you say that you've been questioning who you are, I would say focus more on the aspects of yourself that cause the questions. But it's good, though. And again, these things happen in pieces. These things happen in parts. Yeah, it's definitely something, I believe the left-hand path, being the path of personal accountability and personal responsibility, is extremely important for this process. I think when dealing with an ego death, I think the left-hand path is probably the best path that you can be on. Right? There's certain aspects of yourself that you believe that identify you, and you begin to break those away. And the thing is I believe that there are different levels to an ego death. It's not just one soul experience that happens in your life, but I believe there are different points in your life where certain aspects of who you are begin to break away and new pieces begin to come in, right? And begin to heal the damage that was done. And I believe that these happen, in different stages in our lives. When we begin to come to realizations that certain things need to change for our benefit. At least that's what I believe in of how this works, right? Like another cycle starting? Definitely. We're constantly transforming. We're constantly changing aspects of ourselves. Like, I don't believe the idea, the concept that people don't change. I do believe that people change, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worst. I don't believe we just grow into a mold of who or what we are. Right? Like, after enough things change, and we remove certain things that are no longer indicative of who we are, we begin to change other things. We begin to realize that other things are no longer indicative of who we are. And we begin to remove and change those. And by the end of the process, we're a completely different person. Hopefully, most of the time for the better. Now, this transformation and this change can go the complete opposite direction. Exactly. Every single day we learn something new. And as we learn, we grow. And as we grow, we make changes to ourselves, our personality, and our actions to complement those changes and those in understanding. And those are necessary changes. I think the issue, what happens here is with the ego death, is when we begin to ignore the things that need to change and hold on to them. We begin to realize that those things no longer fulfill us. For as much as we try to hold on to it, because we remember how we felt with those certain things. We want to feel that way again. We think that by forcing ourselves to fit into this mold of what we were, that we're somehow going to reactivate that, dopamine response to what we're doing, and it doesn't work that way. This is one of the reasons why I definitely force this idea. I constantly talk about working with Baphomet, because Baphomet does have a hardcore focus on balance and the reconciliation of differences. And my work with Baphomet has definitely assisted me and helped me move through reconciling polarities inside of myself. When you have these two polarities, these two things happening, and one is not the best for you, but you're not 100% convinced on the other, And when you realize it's not necessarily about making a choice between A or B, but rather bringing them together and creating option C, which I think is one thing that a lot of people kind of run into. They run into a problem with that because they don't see that option. They don't see that possibility of kind of bringing these things together and creating an option. They don't see it. Right? They think there's just this, and that's it. It's very rarely actually the case. Very rarely. So, if you're questioning who you are, I would definitely suggest trying to do ritual work with Baphomet. Like, I can't advocate that enough. Being left-hand path and understanding that you're responsible for where you are and who you are as a person, and you're responsible for going where you want to go, that it is only you that can bring you where you want to go. It is only you that can change your current circumstance. Baphomet definitely helps with balancing oneself out during that process, change, that process of transformation. Opening up options C and D. Definitely. Definitely. We get so stuck on A or B, and we can't see, past the nose on our own face. We don't realize that there are other options. There's other ways of handling situations. There's other ways to go forward. We get too caught up in the duality of it, right? And that's kind of like a big issue, right? Like in society in general today, everything nowadays is a duality. It's left, right, it's up, it's down, it's good, it's evil, it's there's no gray area for anything else to exist. Everything in today's society has literally become A or B. And we have been so conditioned to it so quickly that it becomes almost impossible for us to say, wait a minute. There is C, D, E, F, G. There's a million different options and directions that we can go with this. Some slightly off the beaten path, some require us to blaze a fucking trail for it. But there's always more options. Always. Unfortunately, in today, people only really want you to focus on the duality. And that's I believe is the worst thing that you can do for yourself, is to limit yourself to only two options of something. Right? Either yes or no, 100% or 0%. If you think about the spectrum of percentage, I mean, it goes from 0 to 100 for a reason. There are 100 different micro points that you can calculate in and find a completely different option or direction. Right? And a lot of people like to talk about spectrums. Life is a spectrum. The choices that you make in your life are a spectrum. And like I've always said, there are no good choices or bad choices. There are just choices and learning experiences. Sometimes a choice will have consequence that is beneficial to you. Sometimes a choice will have a consequence that isn't beneficial to you. And that just shows that there were aspects of that choice that you negated to look at, and it blew back at you. And that is a learning experience. What aspects of this choice did I refuse to look at? What was I not seeing? So that way later on, when a similar choice arises, you're prepared to look at those other options, those other aspects, and make a more informed decision. Anyway, I think that is going to cover everything for today. Glad that I got to talk about this. I'm glad I got to kind of go through it. I would have liked to just go off on a tangent on it, but I wanted to keep it focused. What I wanted to talk about here, dealing with ego death. I felt it to be something important to discuss. We've touched base on it a few times in Apocrypha, and I thought Satan and Coffee, the Black Mass, would be a good opportunity to kind of dive into it a little bit more with a focus on the left-hand path. So with that being said, everyone, thank you for being here. Greatly appreciate it. You guys are fucking amazing. And that is going to be it for today. So, as always, and how we end, hail Satan, hail Lilith, hail Lucifer, hail Pyman, hail Baphomet. Always, hail thy fucking self. And see you guys out.